Audubon makes a lasting impression on people and seems to always have done so. There were individuals here in Henderson whose families knew Audubon. Individuals that he worked with, that dealt with him in his store. They remembered and passed stories on about Audubon long after he was gone from Kentucky, and even after his death in 1851. I can talk to my own self. As I grew up near his Pennsylvania home and spent my many happy hours as a child running through the woods there and learning about the birds and observing nature. Well, we were very fortunate. One lady was really taken up with Audubon and just loved the stories that she heard from her grandparents that had known Audubon in those early days. And her name was Susan Tolles. Susan decided that something needed to be done for Audubon here in Henderson. And she began asking people for items, things that they might have relating to Audubon, began collecting things, and began to pursue the idea of a museum here of Audubon here in Henderson, where he had happily lived for 9 years. And over the past 75 years, Susan Tolles' dream of a museum here in Henderson for Audubon has continued to grow, so it's the largest collection of Audubon paintings, prints, and artifacts anywhere in the country. Everyone in Kentucky needs to come and visit the museum. It's part of our history, both natural history and the history of our nation. John Audubon was born in Santo Domingo in 1885. He was an illegitimate child. His father was a French sea captain. His mother was a French peasant girl working on one of the plantations there. She died shortly after his birth, and Captain Audubon took John, as well as a half-sister, back to France with him. John was raised in France. John was pretty much allowed to pursue his own interests throughout his early childhood, and he was much interested in wildlife, nature, and art, and his stepmother allowed him to do whatever he really wanted to do. He came here to make a living, simply out of his love for a young lady. He would have been happy just to do nothing else but paint birds all his life from early on, but he recognized he needed to make a living. He saw the Kentucky frontier at the time as a place where he could establish himself and possibly make a fortune. There was money to be made, on the frontier. Audubon set the tone for all wildlife art that came after him. He wanted to show how things actually live. His early drawings were in the scientific style of the time, the stiff portraits of the birds. From that you could identify the bird, but it didn't tell the story of the bird. Audubon would observe, he would watch, and he would often spend hours observing birds before he would attempt to obtain a specimen from which he would draw from. And if you're going to show the birds close up with the magnificent detail that he puts into his work, you have to have a specimen or something before you. These creatures are so unique. They're so wonderful in what they do and what their place is in the environment and in the world we live in. And that's what he wanted to show people. He wanted to show how they interact with each other, what their place is in nature. And Audubon accomplished this in his drawings like no one before him. This backwoodsman, as they referred to him, from Kentucky, showing up with these enormous paintings of birds. In a non-traditional circumstance, Audubon shows up with these incredible paintings of these lifelike birds and habitats, and it was just breaking the tradition that everyone was familiar with. So they used this as an excuse that he really didn't know his art and didn't know anything about the birds to sort of push for a boycott of him, that no publisher would consider touching these works in Philadelphia. So Audubon packed up in 1826, went to England where they exhibited his work, and people just raved about him. Within a short period of time, Audubon had become sort of the equivalent of today's rock star. England and Europe were taking in everything they could about America, American sort of mentality of adventure and frontier feeling about things. And Audubon shows that in his paintings. You get a feel for how things really are in America. He portrayed an America that was passing, as we see just nature in the early drawings, but then we begin to see buildings in the background. You see plantations, you see little towns, you see the forest being cut down. So he was showing what is taking place in the country as well. And people wanted to see this, they wanted to learn about it and hear what was new from America. And so he sold his paintings on that basis, or sold the image of the frontier of America through his paintings as well. And sold himself as well. I mean, he passed himself off as the American Woodsman, and he was promoting himself as an individual of the forest of America. And people wanted to see this, and that helped him sell his paintings and the image of himself. And that image lives on today. America was his country, and he would tell tales that that he was actually born in America, and he came back to his natal country, and this was where he actually belonged. And he became a true American in the sense of the word. Embraced our nation and everything it meant.